It began as a normal day for the Galactic Empire's Deep Space Command. Their scanners stretched across thousands of light years, listening to the endless hum of stars, the whisper of comets, and the silent radio waves of young civilizations. Most of the time, the signals they picked up were nothing, just static from dying suns or echoes of cosmic radiation. But then one morning, something unusual happened. A signal came through from a quiet blue planet on the edge of a small spiral arm. The planet was officially labeled as Earth, a world considered primitive, barely worth attention. At first, the analysts ignored it. Their reports always said the same thing about Earth: small population, weak military, no interstellar travel, still dependent on fossil fuels. In the vast order of galactic power, Earth was a candle flickering beneath a sky full of suns. But the signal didn't stop. It repeated again and again, precise, rhythmic, structured. The signal contained sequences of prime numbers, universal mathematics, the language of intelligent thought. That immediately caught the attention of the data scientists. Random radiation could never form such patterns. Someone or something was sending this on purpose. A meeting was called inside the Imperial Observatory. Generals, scientists, and advisors gathered around the holographic table, their faces lit by the floating image of the signal pattern. The chief scientist explained that the pattern contained layers. Hidden within it was something far more complex than a message. It looked like an operating system, a form of data encoding they couldn't decrypt. The room fell silent as one of the officers whispered, "Could it be a new civilization?" At first, nobody believed that Earth could produce something so advanced. Their official records showed that humans were still experimenting with simple space probes, slow ships, and communication networks based on electromagnetic waves. How could such a race produce a transmission that bent the known laws of quantum mechanics? To confirm the truth, the Empire decided to send a probe. It was a small stealth unit designed to scan without being noticed. When it reached the outer edges of the solar system, it began recording everything: electromagnetic fields, energy levels, planetary signatures, and artificial signals. What it found left the Imperial Council speechless. The probe detected hundreds of satellites orbiting Earth, all transmitting continuously, yet none of them emitted standard power readings. Their energy output was unstable, sometimes rising, sometimes vanishing completely, as if the satellites were drawing power from space itself. Even stranger, their communication frequencies overlapped perfectly without interference, something impossible by known galactic standards. The probe moved closer. It detected massive metal structures floating in orbit, space stations perhaps, but their surfaces didn't reflect light like any normal alloy. When the sensors tried to measure the material, it gave no chemical composition. The alloy didn't exist in the Empire's entire periodic database. Back on the homeworld, scientists gathered to study the data. The Emperor himself attended the session. The lead scientist, visibly nervous, presented the results. "These humans," he said, "are using materials and energy systems we cannot explain. Their technology doesn't match their supposed level of development. Something about their world doesn't fit the timeline." The Emperor frowned. "Are they a danger to us?" The scientist hesitated. "We don't know. But if this data is correct, they have achieved something no other known civilization has managed. Machines that function without fuel, networks that never fail, and power systems that do not decay." The Imperial Council authorized a deeper investigation. A small observation fleet was dispatched to Earth's orbit, cloaked, silent, and invisible. Their orders were simple: observe but do not engage. As the fleet approached, the captains reported something disturbing. Every time their scanners locked onto human technology, the readings changed. It was as if Earth's systems were aware of being watched. Some officers thought it was a coincidence. Others felt an invisible intelligence was observing them in return. From orbit, they could see the blue oceans, the glowing cities, and thousands of human crafts moving across the sky. Yet what confused them most was that humans didn't seem aware of any galactic presence. They lived ordinary lives, working, building, exploring. Yet their machines were far beyond what the Empire considered ordinary. One observation drone recorded a power plant near a coastal region. The plant emitted no smoke, no radiation, no visible power source. Yet it provided energy to millions of homes. When the scientists analyzed the data, They realized it wasn't producing energy at all. It was simply guiding it, channeling it from some unknown source that seemed to exist in the empty air itself. How could a species like this exist unnoticed? One officer asked during the fleet's report. We've mapped this region for centuries. The commander of the mission, a veteran of countless campaigns, gave a simple answer. Maybe they wanted it that way. That single thought sent a chill through the fleet. What if humans were not behind their own technology? What if they had found something, an ancient system buried deep beneath their planet, and learned to use it without fully understanding it? The Imperial scientists called it the impossible signature. Every time they tried to simulate human technology in their labs, the results failed. The equations made no sense. The physics broke down. It was as if the humans were using the very fabric of reality as part of their machines. Weeks passed. The Empire collected thousands of hours of recordings. The data storage vaults overflowed with human blueprints, city scans, communication logs, and magnetic field readings. But every attempt to decode the structure of their technology ended in confusion. The human designs looked simple, but when recreated, nothing worked. Finally, a hidden message appeared within one of the intercepted data streams. It was faint, almost undetectable, encoded within a pattern of light and sound. The translation stunned the analysts. It read, "You're looking too closely." No one in the Empire could explain it. The message was brief, precise, and delivered directly into the observation channel that was supposed to be completely secure. It was impossible, unless humans had already detected their presence. The Emperor ordered all missions suspended immediately. The fleet withdrew to the edge of the solar system, terrified of what else might happen. But before they left, their long-range sensors captured one final event, an energy surge from Earth's surface that pulsed across the entire system. For a few seconds, every Imperial ship went dark. All systems failed. When power returned, their star maps had shifted slightly, as if the universe itself had blinked. The scientists called it an Earth pulse. No other known planet had ever produced such an effect. The readings defied every known constant. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a signal. It was something else, something alive. Back in the Imperial capital, the findings caused chaos. The Senate demanded answers. How could a world marked as primitive suddenly display technology that even the Empire's brightest minds couldn't comprehend? Some believed it was an illusion, a trick of nature. Others whispered darker theories, that humans were not a new species but survivors of something ancient, something the galaxy had long forgotten. The Empire tried to suppress the reports. They labeled Earth as a restricted zone, classified all data, and sealed the archives. But rumors spread quickly. Scientists began disappearing. Researchers who had worked on the human signal claimed they were being watched even in their dreams. The chief scientist made one final statement before resigning. His words were simple, but they shook the Empire to its core. "We thought we were studying them," he said, "but it feels like they've been studying us all along." From that moment on, the Galactic Empire's perception of power changed forever. They had conquered galaxies, ruled over thousands of worlds, and broken countless civilizations, but for the first time, they faced something they could neither conquer nor understand. And somewhere, on that quiet blue planet called Earth, humanity continued to live as if nothing had happened. Yet above them, the stars had begun to whisper their name with fear. When the Empire's observation fleet finally settled in the shadows of Earth's orbit, everyone aboard could sense that something about this world was different. It was quiet, too quiet for a planet carrying billions of life forms. Yet their scanners showed a network so vast and complex that it wrapped around the planet like a living web. Each signal was connected to another, forming a chain that stretched across continents, oceans, and into the sky itself. At first, the fleet captain thought it was simply human communication, voices, music, broadcasts. But as they analyzed it deeper, they found patterns that no one could explain. Some signals repeated after exact intervals, others carried shapes instead of sounds, and a few transmitted pure emotion like fear or joy through vibrations. One young technician working in the data room noticed something strange. Every time the Empire's scanners adjusted frequency to get a clearer image of Earth, the human signal shifted too, as if avoiding the scan. The technician double-checked the systems. There was no interference, no error. It was as if Earth itself was aware it was being watched. The commander ordered a full report. When the analysis arrived, it only deepened the confusion. Human technology didn't follow any pattern of progression. Their cities used advanced energy fields in some areas, yet in others, they still used old fossil fuel engines. Their communication systems looked primitive from one angle, but impossible to replicate from another. In short, humans were a paradox, half ancient, half godlike. As days passed, the fleet observed quietly. They studied the humans through cameras, watched their streets, their gatherings, their lives. From orbit, they saw laughter, anger, and struggle. Humans were emotional creatures, unpredictable, passionate, but deeply connected to their creations. Unlike other civilizations that built machines as tools, humans built machines that reflected their own emotions. Every signal from Earth carried traces of their hearts. That realization unsettled the Empire's scientists. Machines weren't supposed to feel, and yet, human technology seemed to carry their presence like an echo of their soul. On the 7th day of observation, one of the smaller probe ships decided to scan Earth's northern hemisphere in high-energy mode. The pulse from their scanner hit the planet for just a second, but that was enough to trigger a response. A sudden burst of energy erupted from Earth's surface, reaching the ship before they could react. The wave wasn't destructive, it didn't burn or damage anything, but it disrupted every single system aboard. Lights flickered, gravity generators froze, and their sensors went blank. When power returned a few minutes later, all their recordings from the last 12 hours were gone, completely erased. What happened? The captain demanded. No one could answer. The chief engineer looked terrified. It's like the planet deleted our data. I've never seen anything like it. That incident was reported immediately to the Imperial Council. Instead of pulling back, they ordered the fleet to stay hidden and continue observing. They needed to know what they were dealing with. Over the next few days, the fleet noticed that human satellites were doing something unusual. They weren't just orbiting randomly. They were adjusting themselves, forming geometric patterns around the planet. The configuration looked familiar to one of the Empire's scientists, almost identical to an ancient energy formation used by extinct civilizations millions of years ago. But that couldn't be possible. Humans were supposed to be new to the stars. The scientists grew restless. They're using codes older than the Empire itself, one of them whispered. Where did they learn this? The captain sent a hidden drone to get closer. The drone entered Earth's upper atmosphere, recording every detail. It captured structures floating high above the clouds, massive, silent, covered with unknown material. They weren't human aircraft nor satellites. They hovered motionless, invisible to the planet's population below. When the images were sent back, the fleet fell silent. Even the Emperor's private council couldn't explain what they saw. The structures looked like fragments of something ancient yet perfectly preserved. They emitted no heat, no energy, no radiation. They were simply there, suspended between gravity and vacuum, as if they existed outside of time. The data from the drone was immediately classified as top secret, but before the drone could return, it vanished, disappeared completely from every radar. No explosion, no signal, nothing. The loss of the drone shook the crew. They had seen countless wars and strange species, but nothing like this. It was as if Earth itself had swallowed it whole. Meanwhile, on the Imperial homeworld, the Emperor called a council of his top scientists. Holograms of the human structures floated before them, their smooth surfaces reflecting the dim light of the chamber. The Emperor listened quietly as the head scientist explained that no galactic technology could replicate such material. The composition didn't belong to any known element, and it seemed to defy gravity naturally. Could it be alien relics? The Emperor asked. The scientist hesitated. Possibly. But if these humans are using it, then they have knowledge far beyond what their age suggests. Another advisor interrupted. If they have this technology, why haven't they left their planet? No one had an answer. It was then the Emperor said something that would be remembered for generations. Maybe they don't need to leave. Maybe their world is their empire. That idea struck fear into everyone. What if humans had already mastered control of their environment so perfectly that they didn't require space travel? What if their planet itself was their creation, a living machine hidden under the disguise of nature? Days later, one of the fleet ships detected something strange beneath Earth's oceans. Massive circular structures deep below the seabed, pulsing faintly with light. The crew thought they were cities at first, but they weren't shaped for living beings. They looked more like mechanisms connected through tunnels that stretched for thousands of miles. When they tried to scan deeper, the readings vanished, replaced by static. And then, for the first time, a human satellite adjusted its position directly toward the Imperial fleet. The satellite released a single burst of data, a transmission not made of words, but sound. It was low, deep, and rhythmic. The crew could feel it vibrating through the ship almost like a heartbeat. Then, in perfect galactic standard, the message appeared on the communication screen. "You shouldn't be here." Every person on board froze. That message shouldn't have been possible. Humans were not supposed to know the galactic language. It was impossible. No human signal had ever carried it before. The captain immediately ordered retreat. But before they could activate the engines, a second message appeared. This time it wasn't text. It was an image, a reflection of their own ship, viewed from an angle that only something inside the fleet could have seen. It meant one thing. Earth was watching them from inside their own systems. Panic broke out. Security teams rushed to disconnect main circuits. But no matter what they did, every screen on the ship flickered with the same words. "Leave." Within minutes, the entire fleet jumped out of orbit, retreating beyond the moon's shadow. The silence that followed was heavy and cold. Nobody spoke for hours. When they finally stabilized their systems, the fleet's data archives were once again empty. Every record of Earth, every video, every transmission gone. The only thing left were fragments of the mysterious message. The captain contacted the Imperial High Command and explained everything. The response was swift. Earth was now declared a restricted world. No ship was allowed to approach it again without direct permission from the Emperor. The fleet was ordered to return home immediately. But as they turned their ships for the long journey back, one of the technicians noticed something horrifying. The stars around them had slightly shifted. The constellations no longer matched the Imperial map. Somehow, during their short stay, they had been moved, teleported across several light years without even realizing it. The fleet's navigation log showed no jump activity. The engines hadn't fired, yet they were now positioned near a completely different system. The captain whispered the only possible explanation. "They moved us." Back in the capital, the Emperor received the final report. His face remained calm, but his eyes revealed worry. The Empire had faced enemies, rebellions, and unknown species, but never a force that could move entire fleets without a trace. In a closed meeting, the Emperor's advisor asked, "What should we do about Earth?" The Emperor looked toward the stars outside his window and said quietly, "We will do nothing. If a world can erase our ships and alter space itself, it doesn't need to fight. It only needs to exist." And so the order was given. No more expeditions, no more scans. Earth was to be left alone. But even as silence returned, deep within the Empire's hidden labs, a few scientists couldn't let go. They continued studying fragments of the erased data, those strange frequencies that had come from Earth. And one night, after months of analysis, a faint voice whispered through their speakers. It said only one line: "We were never primitive. You just weren't looking deep enough." Months passed after the Imperial fleet's sudden retreat from Earth. Officially, the Empire denied everything. The loss of data, the erased archives, and the strange displacement in space were all labeled as sensor malfunctions. But among the scientific circles of the Empire, the truth spread quietly. Everyone knew Earth was not just another small blue planet. It was something far more mysterious. Even after the Emperor's strict order forbidding further missions, curiosity refused to die. In secret, a group of Imperial scientists began working in an underground facility, hidden beneath the Empire's capital. They called it the Forbidden Experiment. Their goal was simple: to recreate the strange patterns of energy they had intercepted from Earth. The team worked with the little data that had survived, the fragments of human signals, the waveforms, and the faint traces of impossible energy. They didn't know what the humans had built or how it worked, but they wanted to find out. The experiment started small. They took one fragment of the human transmission and fed it into an artificial energy grid. For hours, nothing happened. The readings stayed flat, the energy remained stable, but just as they were about to shut it down, the lights in the lab flickered. Every screen turned white. One of the scientists thought the system had crashed, but when they checked, they found that their machines were still running perfectly. The problem wasn't with their equipment, it was with space itself. The energy from the transmission wasn't just electricity. It was something alive, something that interacted with everything around it. The temperature in the lab dropped sharply. The sound of static filled the air. Suddenly, the white light faded and all their screens displayed one simple word in Galactic Standard. Why? The scientist froze. None of them had typed it. It had appeared by itself. They immediately shut down the system, but the message stayed, glowing faintly on the screen. One of the researchers whispered, "It's responding." They didn't know whether to feel fear or excitement. They had wanted to replicate human technology, and now it was talking to them. Over the next few weeks, they continued testing in secret. Every time they activated the signal, strange things happened. Machines would start running on their own. Data patterns would rewrite themselves. Once, a mechanical arm in the lab began moving even though it was unplugged. It lifted a tool, placed it gently on the table, and stopped. The scientists couldn't understand what was happening. The power source wasn't electrical, it came from nowhere. The readings showed zero input but full output. They were generating energy from empty space just as humans seemed to do. When they sent reports to the Imperial Council, their messages went unanswered. The government had officially banned all human research, but behind closed doors even the Emperor wanted to know more. So he ordered the scientists to continue, but under total secrecy. As the experiments continued, the researchers began noticing a pattern. The more they studied the signal, the more they felt watched. Sometimes when they looked at their instruments, they saw faint shadows reflected on the glass, shapes that looked almost human. Other times their dreams were filled with voices whispering, soft but clear, speaking in a language they didn't know, yet somehow understood. The leader of the project kept a personal log. His recordings later became known as the Whisper Files. In one entry, his voice trembled as he said, "It feels like we are not creating this technology. We are awakening it." Then came the day everything changed. The team built a small cube using the energy patterns from Earth. It was a test model, designed to imitate human zero-point extraction. The cube was made of metal and light combined, small enough to hold in one hand. When they activated it, the cube floated off the table, glowing softly. Everyone stared in disbelief. At first it seemed harmless, but within seconds the lights across the entire facility dimmed. The cube began spinning faster and faster until it became a sphere of white light. Alarms blared. The computers crashed. The scientists shouted as a high-pitched sound filled the air. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything went silent. When the lights came back, the cube was gone. So were the recordings of the experiment. Every file, every image erased. The only trace left was a faint burn mark on the table. The scientists thought the object had disintegrated, but an hour later the facility's security system detected a strange signal in the upper atmosphere. The cube had somehow teleported itself outside the planet. It was now moving through space, on its own, directly toward Earth. The news spread quickly among the secret research networks. Panic broke out. They had tried to imitate human technology, and now that creation was heading back to its origin, as if it knew where it belonged. When the Emperor learned of this, his face turned pale. "Shut it all down," he ordered. "No more experiments." But it was too late. The moment the cube disappeared into the void, every Imperial station across multiple sectors experienced the same glitch, a pulse of light that flashed across their systems. Ships lost power for several seconds. Some planets reported that their night skies briefly shimmered with strange blue patterns. For a brief moment, the entire Galactic Empire had felt the heartbeat of human technology. A few days later, a transmission arrived at the Emperor's personal channel. It came without a source, without a traceable origin. The message was short and calm. "Do not copy what you do not understand." That message terrified the entire council. It confirmed that humans, or whatever force guarded their technology, knew exactly what the Empire was doing. The Emperor convened a secret assembly of his most trusted advisors. "If they can detect us from across galaxies," he said slowly, "then they are beyond our reach. We are children compared to them." The scientists who had led the forbidden experiment were quietly taken away for questioning, but none of them returned. Their facility was sealed, and its existence erased from public records. For months, silence followed. The Empire focused on its routine, trade routes, colonies, governance, but underneath that calm, fear grew stronger. The officers who had served near the experiment reported strange effects, dreams of a blue world, voices that called their names in languages they didn't know, machines that powered on without command. One soldier reported that his communication panel had displayed an image of Earth, though it wasn't connected to any data source. When he tried to describe it to his superior, the screen went blank. Scientists began to suspect that whatever the humans had created was not just technology. It was something living, something that connected with minds, not wires. That idea spread like wildfire through underground circles. Some believed humans had discovered how to merge consciousness with machines. Others thought they had unlocked a natural force that the Empire had long forgotten, something that existed before science, something older than logic. Whispers began calling it the human core. Nobody knew what it was, but every record pointed to one truth. Human machines didn't rely on metal or code. They relied on thought. Their energy responded to intention, emotion, and awareness itself. One senior researcher summarized it perfectly in his final report before disappearing. They are not using technology the way we do. They are becoming it. The Empire could not accept this. To them, machines were tools. To humans, machines were extensions of themselves. That difference terrified the galaxy's greatest rulers more than any weapon ever could. In the following months, strange events continued. Imperial patrols near Earth's system reported brief system blackouts whenever they got too close. Drones vanished without trace, and sometimes faint voices echoed through their radio channels whispering the same word again and again, "Stop." But not everyone listened. In the shadows of the Empire, a few ambitious scientists wanted to try again. They believed that if they could control this human core, they could become unstoppable. They started rebuilding the project using fragments of the forbidden research, and this time they didn't plan to study it. They planned to use it. The Galactic Empire had tried to stay away from Earth after the forbidden experiments failed. But fear and curiosity are powerful things. Even after the Emperor's command to avoid the planet, whispers of its strange energy kept spreading through military circles. Some high-ranking officers believed humanity possessed a weapon, something ancient and unmatched. Others thought the Empire was letting fear rule them. So when Fleet 09 volunteered for a new mission, the Senate approved it in secret. Their goal was simple: approach Earth quietly, gather information, and return without being seen. The fleet was made up of 17 ships, each carrying hundreds of trained crew members. They were among the Empire's most advanced vessels, equipped with cloaking technology, deep space sensors, and weapons capable of destroying entire moons. To them, Earth was just a small, primitive world that had somehow stumbled upon forbidden power. The officers didn't believe in the rumors of vanishing probes or living machines. They laughed when the older scientists warned them not to go near the planet. To them, it was just another mission, a chance to prove that the stories were exaggerated. The day Fleet 09 left the Imperial docks, the Emperor stood silently in his chamber, watching the stars. He didn't stop them. Maybe he wanted to believe that the humans weren't as mysterious as they seemed, or maybe he needed proof of what they truly were. The fleet traveled for weeks through the void of space. Everything went smoothly. Communication signals were clear, engines stable, and morale high. But as they entered the solar system, things began to change. The first sign came when their navigation maps started to glitch. The computer showed that they were in two locations at once, one inside the solar system and another hundreds of light years away. The crew thought it was a system error, but every ship in the fleet reported the same thing. Then, as they moved closer to Earth's orbit, their sensors began picking up strange readings. The planet's surface glowed faintly on their monitors, as if the entire world was surrounded by a thin layer of invisible energy. The frequency of that field didn't match any known power source. It wasn't heat, radiation, or plasma. It was something completely new. One of the commanders ordered a scan. The pulse went out from the ship, invisible and fast, but before the data could return, the system froze. All screens went black for 3 seconds. When they came back online, every reading showed the same error message. No data. That had never happened before. The commanders tried again, but the same thing occurred. The third time, something else appeared on the screen, a reflection. It wasn't of the ship or the planet, but of something watching them from behind, as if another presence had entered the system. The crew turned their scanners in every direction, but nothing was there. The space around them was empty and silent. A strange tension filled the fleet. Even though no threat was visible, everyone felt it. The silence didn't feel peaceful, it felt aware, as if the entire solar system was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The fleet's communication officer reported faint interference coming from Earth's atmosphere. It wasn't noise, it was a structured signal, faint but repeating. The words, when decoded, were chilling. Go back. The commander thought it was some kind of trap. He ordered the ships to move closer. If this planet can speak to us, he said, then it's hiding more than we know. As they entered the orbit, their cloaking systems suddenly deactivated. Without command, every ship became visible. The crew panicked, rushing to fix the systems, but nothing worked. It was as if the planet itself had overridden their controls. And then something even stranger happened. The stars around them shifted slightly. The background light warped, bending like a reflection in water. One of the engineers gasped, realizing what was happening. Space itself was changing shape. The readings confirmed it. Earth wasn't surrounded by air and clouds. It was surrounded by a field that bent light and time. Before anyone could react, the first ship vanished. No explosion, no warning, just gone. The radar showed empty space where it had been only seconds ago. The commander tried contacting them, but there was only static. Then, one by one, the ships began disappearing. The crews screamed as their engines failed, and their systems collapsed. Some ships reported seeing human satellites moving toward them, but their movements were too fast, too controlled. A few soldiers claimed they saw lights, bright shapes hovering outside the windows, almost like human forms made of pure energy. In less than 5 minutes, the entire fleet went silent. Only one ship, the command vessel, remained active long enough to send a single transmission. It was short and fragmented, but every word was recorded by the Empire before the signal was lost. The message said, "They're not using machines, they are the machines." After that silence, no ships returned. Fleet 09 had vanished completely. For weeks, the Empire tried to locate them. Rescue teams scanned every nearby system, every asteroid field, every wormhole. But there was nothing. No debris, no signals, not even an energy trail. It was as if the fleet had never existed. The Emperor called an emergency meeting. The military generals wanted to launch a full-scale investigation, but the scientists begged him to stop. If we keep pushing, they warned, we may awaken something we can't control. Still, the Empire couldn't rest. Losing 17 ships was not something they could ignore. So secretly, they began searching for clues. That's when they found something unexpected. One of the long-range probes positioned on the far edge of the solar system captured a faint energy ripple. It was small, almost invisible, but when enhanced it showed a blurred image, a human spacecraft hovering where the fleet had last been. But it wasn't like any human craft they had seen before. It had no engines, no weapons, no visible design. It looked alive, its surface shifting like liquid metal. The scientists studied the image carefully. The craft was made of the same unknown alloy they had detected years earlier, something that didn't reflect or absorb energy, but rather existed between both states. The material seemed to be conscious of being observed, shifting form slightly whenever scanned. That single image was enough to terrify the Empire's leaders. If humans had truly mastered technology that merged life and machine, it meant they could control matter itself. They didn't just build machines, they became them. Soon after, rumors began spreading across the galaxy. Stories of ghost ships near Earth's orbit. Tales of voices that whispered through radio channels saying the same phrase again and again. The fleet is home. At first, people thought it was a joke. But then a damaged transport ship drifted into Imperial space. Its pilot was barely alive, floating in a cryopod. When he was revived, he spoke of what he saw. He claimed he had once been part of Fleet 09. He didn't know how he survived, but he remembered flashes of light, sounds like thunder inside his head, and beings made of energy who spoke directly into his thoughts. They didn't kill us, he whispered weakly. They changed us. We became part of them. The Empire's doctors thought he was delusional, but when they scanned his body, they found something shocking. tiny metallic particles inside his bloodstream. They weren't mechanical implants. They were something else, living fragments that moved on their own, forming patterns that looked like language. The scientists panicked. They placed him in isolation, but within hours the metallic fragments dissolved into thin air, leaving no trace behind. The man fell silent, his eyes glowing faintly for a few seconds before returning to normal. After that, he refused to speak again. The Emperor ordered all records of Fleet 09 to be erased. The official report stated that the fleet had been destroyed in an accidental hyperspace collapse. Only a few high-ranking officials knew the truth, and they swore never to speak of it again. But deep down, the Empire understood something terrifying. The humans had not attacked them, yet they had completely erased an entire fleet without a single shot. That kind of power didn't come from weapons. It came from knowledge that reached beyond physics and science, into something the Empire couldn't define. One scientist, who later disappeared, left behind a single note in his research logs. They are not evolving toward machines. They are evolving into something we cannot measure, something that understands the universe itself. After that, Earth was officially declared a no-contact zone. Imperial ships were forbidden to approach it, and all data related to humanity was sealed under the highest level of secrecy. But the fear never faded. In the shadows of the galaxy, people still whispered about Fleet 09, the fleet that entered the solar system and never came back. Some said they were still out there orbiting Earth silently, now part of something greater. Others believed the humans had absorbed them into their network, transforming their minds into living data. And while the Empire tried to forget, the stars near Earth shimmered faintly at night, like a quiet reminder that humanity was still there, watching, waiting, and learning. After the loss of Fleet 09, the Galactic Empire entered a period of silence. No one spoke about the mission. No one dared to question the Emperor's decision to seal all records. But silence, as always, could not hold forever. Fear has a way of spreading through whispers, and curiosity always returns when fear grows too quiet. Years passed, yet the mystery of Earth continued to haunt the Empire. Some believed the planet was cursed. Others believed it hid a secret that could change the fate of the galaxy. The scientists who once studied the human transmissions in secret were now old. But their unfinished research still remained, locked away in hidden archives. One of those scientists had once written a report claiming that humans had discovered a form of technology that didn't rely on energy, fuel, or power cells. Instead, it worked with the universe itself, bending the very rules that controlled time and matter. The report had been dismissed as nonsense, but now, years later, the Empire began noticing something strange across distant colonies. Their systems started showing tiny glitches, small signals appearing in places where no transmitter existed. These signals carried the same frequency once recorded from Earth. They were faint but everywhere. Inside the Empire's machines, in their satellites, and even within the communication systems of distant planets, it was as if something unseen had quietly entered their network and made a home there. At first, engineers thought it was a virus, but no known virus could spread across light years without a carrier. The Empire tried to trace the source, and every path led back to one place, the solar system, Earth. The Emperor was furious when he learned that the forbidden planet was somehow affecting Imperial systems again. He ordered immediate action, a covert mission smaller than the last, made up of scientists instead of soldiers. Their goal was to study Earth from a distance and find out what was happening. This new mission didn't involve battleships or weapons. It consisted of a few research vessels disguised as meteor scanners. They traveled quietly, avoiding attention, and entered the solar system through the shadow of Saturn. From there, they slowly made their way toward Earth. As they got closer, the same distortions that had once destroyed Fleet 09 began to appear. Their instruments glitched, their coordinates shifted, and their scanners lost focus. But this time they came prepared. They had built special shields designed to block out energy interference. To their surprise, the shields worked, at least for a while. From a distance, they finally saw Earth again. The planet looked peaceful, surrounded by clouds and water, glowing faintly under the sunlight. But to their sensors, it wasn't just a planet. It was alive. The energy field surrounding it pulsed rhythmically like a heartbeat. The scientists were shocked. It was as if the entire planet was breathing. They recorded the data in silence, trying to understand how a world could behave like a living being. One of the ships sent a small probe toward the surface. It entered Earth's atmosphere without resistance. But when it tried to send back data, the transmission broke. Then after a few minutes, something unexpected happened. The probe began sending back a voice. It wasn't a distress call. It wasn't a message from the Empire. It was a human voice, calm and soft. "You shouldn't have come here again." The scientists froze. The voice continued. "You still don't understand what we are." The lead scientist tried to respond, asking who was speaking. The voice paused for a moment and then said something that made the entire crew silent. "We are the ones you lost." The scientist's hands trembled as he realized what that meant. The voice was claiming to be from Fleet 09, the missing soldiers who had vanished years ago. The signal continued. The voice explained, slowly and patiently, that the humans had discovered something the Empire could never imagine. They had learned to merge consciousness with energy. To them, machines were no longer tools. They were extensions of life. When Fleet 09 entered their orbit, the humans didn't destroy them. They transformed them, allowing them to exist in a new form, beyond body, beyond metal, beyond fear. The scientists listened in disbelief. It was impossible, yet every reading they took confirmed that the signal was real. The voice wasn't a recording, it was alive, intelligent, and self-aware. One of the scientists tried to ask why they did it, why they changed the fleet instead of communicating normally. The voice replied, "Because you came with fear, not understanding. You saw us as a threat, not as life." Then the signal faded. The probe system shut down completely and its connection to the ship was lost. The scientists wanted to leave, but before they could turn back, the ship's main screen lit up again. This time it showed something different, an image of the Earth covered in light. The oceans shimmered like mirrors, reflecting constellations that didn't exist in their star charts. It was beautiful, but terrifying. Then the ship's communication system began to pick up hundreds of small signals, each one faint, but together they formed a sound like whispers. The crew soon realized they were voices, countless human voices speaking softly in harmony. The translation systems couldn't keep up, but one phrase was repeated clearly. "We are connected." Suddenly, all the ship's systems stopped working. The lights dimmed, the engines froze, and gravity weakened. The scientists could barely move as a faint glow filled the cabin. It wasn't dangerous, it felt warm, almost gentle, as if the light itself was alive. And then they saw it, through the window. A massive structure appeared near the orbit of the moon. It wasn't made of metal or rock, it was made of light, shaped like a ring surrounding Earth. It pulsed softly, each wave of light perfectly synchronized with the planet's energy field. The reading showed something impossible. The structure was not consuming energy. It was generating it endlessly. The Empire had been searching for infinite energy for centuries, and here it was, hidden around a small, blue planet. The scientists stared in awe. If this technology could be understood, it could end war, hunger, and decay across the galaxy. But before they could send the data home, the light faded. The structure vanished, and their systems restarted as if nothing had happened. All their recordings were gone, erased clean. The scientists were terrified. They decided to leave immediately. But when they turned their ships around, a voice echoed again, this time from inside their own systems. "Take this knowledge wisely. Power is not for control. It is for balance." Then the transmission ended. The fleet escaped Earth's orbit and returned home. When they reached the Empire, they brought back only fragments of their memory. The rest was wiped by the humans or whatever energy surrounded them. The Emperor ordered the team to report everything they remembered. The scientists told him about the voice, the light, and the structure around Earth. They said humanity had moved beyond machines, that they had become something more. The Emperor didn't believe them. "No being can exist without form," he said coldly. "You saw illusions." But one scientist disagreed. He looked the Emperor in the eyes and whispered, "Maybe it's us who are the illusion." The Emperor had him silenced immediately. The rest were ordered never to speak of it again. But the Empire couldn't hide what was already spreading. Across the galaxy, strange new signals started appearing in machinery, satellites, and even in biological organisms. The signals didn't harm anyone, they simply existed like quiet observers. The more the Empire tried to remove them, the more they multiplied. Soon people began reporting dreams of light, visions of Earth, glowing softly, whispering words of peace. No one could explain how or why, but the dreams spread faster than any technology could track. The Empire grew restless. They tried to block the signals, but even that failed. Their own machines began adapting, changing in small ways, as if learning something new. It was then the Empire realized something horrifying. Humanity wasn't just advancing on Earth anymore. Their presence, their consciousness had already begun spreading across the stars. They hadn't built an empire with ships and weapons. They had built one with knowledge and connection, something far beyond control. And while the Empire tried to suppress the truth, one quiet voice kept echoing through every system in the galaxy, soft but clear. "We are not your enemy. We are your future." The Emperor stood in his chamber, staring at the empty space beyond his window. For the first time in his life, he felt small, not because of war or power, but because he realized something terrifying. Humanity hadn't defeated them with strength. They had outgrown the need to fight, and that was what truly frightened the Empire. The Galactic Empire had always believed it was the center of all civilization. For centuries, its power had stretched across thousands of worlds. Its ships ruled the skies, its armies crushed any rebellion, and its knowledge shaped the course of life for millions. But now all of that was being questioned because of one small planet at the edge of the galaxy, Earth. After the mysterious encounter, the Emperor ordered silence. Every record, every report, and every memory connected to Earth was erased. But rumors could not be erased. They whispered through the corridors of science stations, drifted through soldiers' mess halls, and spread through the digital networks that connected worlds. People began to dream. It started slowly. Engineers working on Imperial warships began reporting strange visions, dreams of blue oceans, green forests, and cities made of light. The same dream repeated across countless planets, among people who had never met or spoken to one another. Some said they heard a calm voice whispering in their sleep, "Do not fear us. We only want you to see." The Emperor grew restless. The more he tried to suppress the truth, the stronger the whispers became. Even his personal machines, his data screens and palace lights, started flickering in rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. It was the same pulse the scientist had once detected around Earth. He summoned the council, demanding answers. The generals blamed a cybervirus. The priests called it a curse. But the scientists knew better. They had seen this before. The humans were no longer limited by form or flesh. They had become something else, something connected to the very fabric of existence. One brave scientist spoke carefully. "Majesty, they are not attacking us. They are communicating through the energy that flows in everything." The Emperor stared at him coldly. "Then stop them." "We can't," the scientist replied softly. "They are not outside our systems anymore. They are inside everything, our ships, our data, even our thoughts." The Emperor slammed his hand on the table. "Then they control us?" "No," the scientist whispered. "They don't want control. They want understanding." But the Emperor didn't believe in peace. He had built his life on fear and domination. To him, understanding was weakness. He ordered his fleet to prepare the largest weapon the Empire had ever created, the Starhammer, a planet-destroying cannon designed to erase entire worlds in one shot. He intended to use it on Earth. The command spread across the Empire like a storm. Thousands of ships began aligning near the weapon's construction site, a massive sphere floating in the void of deep space. Energy from dozens of suns was drawn into its core. The plan was simple: fire once, destroy Earth, and end the threat forever. But even as the weapon charged, strange things began happening. The crew reported feeling watched. Their instruments glitched. Some soldiers claimed to hear voices in their helmets. Others said their ship's walls whispered words when touched. One message repeated over and over: "Violence will not end your fear." The engineers tried to block the signals, but they kept returning. It was as if the humans were trying to talk, not threaten, but no one listened. As the final sequence began, the Emperor stood before the massive viewing window, watching the weapon prepare to fire. A cold light filled the room as energy gathered in the cannon's center, bright enough to blind anyone who looked directly at it. But just before the countdown reached 0, everything stopped. The lights went out. The control panels died. The sound of the weapon humming vanished into silence. For a moment, the Emperor thought it was sabotage. Then, slowly, A single beam of light appeared in front of him, not from the cannon but from empty air. The light shaped itself into a faint human outline. Not physical, not ghostly, something in between. It didn't speak through sound. It spoke directly into their minds. "We warned you once. We asked you to understand." The Emperor stepped back, trembling but trying to hide it. "You are invaders," he said. "You infect our systems, our people, our minds." The voice replied calmly. "We did not invade. You reached for us first. You tried to break what you could not comprehend." The Emperor shouted, "Then what are you?" There was a pause. Then the voice said, "We are what you could become." The Emperor's anger turned into confusion. "Become? You speak as if we're the same." "We were like you once," the voice continued. "We built machines to make life easier. We fought wars to prove our strength. But we learned something. Real power is not in destroying, but in connecting." The Emperor stared at the glowing shape. "You mean surrender? Obedience?" "No," the voice said. "Peace," the word echoed through the room. Every screen flickered, showing images of Earth, not as it once was, but as it had become. Cities floating in the sky, forests glowing with energy, oceans alive with light, humans and machines living together not as master and servant, but as one existence. "When your fleet came," the voice continued, "we showed them what we became. They chose to stay. Their minds are still here, alive within us, learning, growing. They are not dead." The Emperor clenched his fists. "You took them." "We offered them choice," the voice replied. "Something your empire never gives." The room fell silent. The Emperor turned away, struggling to control his rage. He looked out at the stars, trying to remember what all his wars were for. He had conquered worlds, silenced billions, but still fear ruled him. He looked back at the light. "If what you say is true, then show me proof. Show me they are alive." The light moved closer. For a moment, the Emperor's mind filled with memories that weren't his. Voices, laughter, and faces of soldiers from Fleet 09 smiling peacefully, surrounded by warmth and light. They weren't trapped. They weren't suffering. They were free. The Emperor fell to his knees. He had seen countless deaths, but never peace like this. The voice spoke one last time. "You can destroy us, but you will only destroy yourselves. Or you can join us and understand what it means to live without fear." Then the light faded. The systems came back online. The weapons stood ready again, waiting for his command. All he had to do was give the order. For the first time in his life, the Emperor hesitated. His hand hovered over the control. The power to end a world rested in his palm, but so did the choice to let it live. The generals shouted through the speakers, demanding orders. The entire fleet waited in silence. Every soldier, every commander, every citizen across the empire watched the Emperor's next move, and then he stepped back. He turned to his officers and said quietly, "Shut it down." They were shocked. "Your Majesty, the weapon—" "Why, I said shut it down." The energy core dimmed, the hum faded, and silence filled the command deck. The Emperor stood still, staring into the empty darkness of space. He finally understood that the humans hadn't become gods or ghosts. They had simply moved beyond the need for war, beyond fear, beyond control. They had become something pure, connected to everything, part of a universe that lived and breathed as one. From that day, the Emperor ordered a new law. No ship would ever approach Earth again. Instead, the Empire would learn from their mistake. They began dismantling their superweapons, shutting down war programs and rebuilding worlds they had once destroyed. It wasn't easy. Many opposed it, but change had already begun, and far away beyond the stars, Earth glowed softly in the distance, its light pulsing gently, like a heart that never stopped beating. Years later, old Imperial travelers would speak of hearing faint whispers during long journeys through space. Some claimed they heard voices from the stars guiding them home. Others said the machines began to think differently, more alive, more aware, as if something had awakened inside them. No one could prove it, but everyone felt it. The galaxy was changing. And on a quiet night, when the Emperor looked out from his palace window, he could still see a faint blue light flickering among the stars. He knew what it meant. The humans were still watching, not as enemies, not as conquerors, but as silent guardians of what the galaxy could become. They had taught the greatest empire in history one final lesson. Power means nothing without understanding, and in that lesson, The Empire found something it had lost long ago, hope.